All right, Donald Trump is alive. He is alive. He didn't die. But if you were anywhere near the internet for the last week or so, you may have seen people speculating otherwise, that he actually had died fully. Lots of people doing plenty of joking around about it. If Trump is dead, they should bury JD with him like this. Me waiting for Pop Base to tweet Donald Trump dead at 79. Liking every tweet about Trump being dead to put this energy into the universe. In the club waiting for y'all to tell me Trump is dead so I can break my 7 years of sobriety. It's been a huge scandal on social media, and it's mostly just funny and kind of interesting how it happened, and that's why I want to talk about it. For my first ever Donald Trump video, in case your only source of information is my channel, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And many people say that he's not such a good guy, which is part of why the internet kind of exploded when it was rumored that he might have died. But a few different things led people to this speculation. First was that Trump was making some kind of weird comments about him going to heaven. He went on Fox and Friends on August 20th and said that one of his motivations for ending the war in Ukraine, which he claims to want to do, is that he wants to get into heaven.
I just want to end it. I want to end it. You know, we're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, you know, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
A few days later, some photos were released that showed that he had a big bruise on his hand. The White House claimed that this was the result of him shaking a lot of people's hands all the time, which is something he said in prior years when he's had similar bruises on his hands. That same day, Vice President J.D. Vance made a sort of cryptic comment saying that he was ready to step into the Oval Office should a terrible tragedy befall Trump.
But also say that the president is in incredibly good health. He's got incredible energy. And while most of the people who work around the President of the United States are younger than he is, I think that we find that he actually is the last person who goes to sleep. He's the last person making phone calls at night, and he's the first person who wakes up and the first person making phone calls in the morning. So yes, things can always happen. Yes, terrible tragedies happen. But I feel very confident the President of the United States is in good shape, is going to serve out the remainder of his term and do great things for the American people. And if, God forbid, there's a terrible tragedy, I can't think of better on-the-job training than what I've gotten over the last 200 days.
Then, after Trump hadn't been seen in public for about 3 days, the White House posted a schedule of Trump's next 3 days, and none of the events were public, so a full week not being seen, just room for further speculation. It turns out, though, like I said, he's alive. Some photos dropped of him at a golf course. Then he had a press conference, so he was talking on camera alive. And in that press conference, he actually dismissed the rumors directly that he was dead.
Completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see you for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that. You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do him for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape.
His response to the rumors were pretty widely covered, but not all coverage was the same. A good way to see these kinds of differences is with the headlines and the subheadings. For example, the New York Post's headline reads, "Trump addresses baseless rumors of his death, says he was very active over the weekend." The baseless there is being put there by the New York Post. It's not a quote. And then Fox News calls the rumors bizarre in their headline, which, to be fair to Fox News, you know, they are pretty bizarre, pretty conspiratorial, in my opinion. But liberal to left outlets tended to leave that out of the headings. They kept them more neutral, like NBC and The Independent. And then some left-leaning sources actually reported on new information which contradicted Trump's claims. Like his claim that he hadn't heard any of the rumors. The Rolling Stone reported from a source within the White House that he did know. There was also a bit of a gap in coverage on this story from right-leaning news outlets. According to Ground News, which is the sponsor of today's video, less than 20% of the coverage was done so by right-wing outlets. I like Ground News because it gives you tools to compare coverage between news stories and just get a better picture of how political bias affects the information you receive. If you want access to tools like these, go to ground.news/Noah. And if you sign up using my link, you'll save 40% on unlimited access to the Vantage plan. Even after the proof surfaced that he was still alive, people kept speculating, whether, joking or not. There was a long thread from a journalist named Adam Cochran that looks into some of the health claims that I thought was kind of interesting. I believe that there is growing evidence that the White House is covering up the fact that Donald Trump had been dealing dealing with TIA strokes, and that he likely had a more significant ischemic stroke this week. Let's start with the basics. TIAs are temporary blockages. You'll see symptoms like leg dragging, eye drooping, etc., but they resolve within 24 hours. Ischemic strokes leave a lasting impact, but can range dramatically in scope and severity. TIAs precede an ischemic stroke in about 30% of patients and often result in long-lasting interventions to try and prevent any risk of a larger stroke. Now let's get to what paints this picture with Trump. In March 2024, it was noted that Trump had been dragging his right leg for a while. It's something we've seen him do on and off over this past year, but not super notable on its own. Oh, the clip is dancing. Oh, sometimes you get a little sore when you're dancing. Then in a Time magazine interview from right after the election, we see the first note of Trump's hand bruising. Once again, something people didn't think much of at the time. And then, yeah, that's where he said he gets the bruises from shaking hands. It comes up again during the Macron visit on February 25th of this year, where Caroline Leavitt repeats the lie about it being from shaking too many hands. The next medical event we see is the president's annual physical report. Comparing the medication list to his old reports, we notice 3 new medications: rosuvastatin, ezetimibe, that's definitely probably wrong, and an aspirin. At first, I thought this might be normal medication for managing cholesterol, and I've certainly heard of preventative aspirin use in the past, but I decided to interview some heart specialists, and I'm glad I did. There are 2 general takeaways I heard from multiple specialists. Daily aspirin is not recommended for prevention anymore. An aspirin regime is treating something. Ezetimibe is a second-line medication not used for regular LDL treatment. Statins like rosuvastatin will manage cholesterol alone, whereas ezetimibe will be used as a second line if the patient is at high cardiovascular risk, such as prior strokes, heart attacks, or arterial disease. Then it's used for stroke prevention. Trump's previous medical reports claim his cardiovascular health is great and is on the statin, so he shouldn't need ezetimibe.
Ezetimibe?
Oh, okay. Okay, ezetimibe. That sounds a little more pharmaceutical. I like ezetimibe better though, to be honest. I think it's got a nicer ring. This also brings us to the aspirin. As it turns out, aspirin hasn't been advised as a daily course prevention method for quite a while. Some old doctors may still incorrectly prescribe it as such, but qualified medical staff who keep up with literature wouldn't. A daily aspirin dose is now used as a blood thinner for specific lines of treatment, including in managing ischemic strokes. Then in June, we see Trump's swollen ankles, and for the first time, the White House medical team is willing to admit, 1, that he's got CVI, and 2, that his bruising is related to aspirin regime and shaking hands. They keep coming back to this claim as aspirin does indeed make bruising easier, but there are 3 problems. Bruising is seen on both hands, not just his dominant hand. CVI is not a sudden onset issue, and swollen ankles is an intermediate symptom. An annual physical in April would have caught CVI back then if ankles were going to be swelling, and aspirin isn't a CVI treatment. But 3rd, some of the bruising is monthly, usually around the 24th. Check the dates. It seems much more likely that the president is being monitored monthly for something and then also occasionally getting an emergency IV as well. So what does all this mean? When a patient has TIA, they have temporary symptoms but would be started on aspirin, rosuvastatin, and ezetimibe prevent future ischemic stroke risk, just like we see with Trump. The patient having TIAs, oh my god, this clip. The patient having TIAs may have temporary symptoms for 24 hours after, including face drooping, leg dragging, or trouble walking in a straight line. Patients who experience very mild strokes that are not TIAs, such as lacunar stroke or a minor ischemic stroke, may have persistent but barely noticeable symptoms causing drooping of the lip, eyelid, and eyebrow, which would be on the same side of a leg dragging symptom. Is this supposed to be showing him being droopy? I feel like his face looks just as tight or droopy, whatever you want to describe it as, both. But the angle does make it look a little dramatic there. If a patient under White House level medical care was seen having a stroke, they'd be scanned to rule out a hemorrhagic with the White House portable MRI, and then could receive alteplase, a clot-busting peripheral IV often given in the hand for elderly patients. If that patient was on aspirin for cardio risk management and or potential calcium blockers, we'd expect bruising of the hands and swelling of the ankles. There's some more photos of that. If they had a mild ischemic stroke, we'd expect the patient to be on bed rest for 24 to 48 hours, and by 2 to 3 days able to take small or assisted steps. And the patient may have facial droop, lateral facial creases, or their mouth agape due to facial muscle weakness. There we see it's agape, just wide open. That says a lot, man. That says a lot. Even though they could walk at this time, speech and complex motor skills may still be recovering. And we notice Trump has oddly kept the press very far back from the White House and hasn't allowed them on the golf course. We also notice that that he dressed the same as the last time he went golfing with Kai, and that MAGA influencers were given an old picture to circulate from January and his other golfing picture from June 27th. Those same influencers were circulating a video of him in the same outfit, but that one came from June 29th of this year. The next picture of him from today, from afar with continued face droop, he once again spoke with no reporters before going golfing, and both times reporters were confined to the tennis court out of view of his course instead of letting them take pictures like normal. So there we see that textbook medical face droop. I know this because I'm a doctor. Just like everybody that you see on the internet, they are also a doctor. Except the people that put MD in their handles. Do not trust those people with anything. None of this even gets into the other weird events this week of Vance being ready to, quote, take over, or his social posts seeming like they were written by interns. But the motive is clear. They know Vance does not have the same hold over the base of the party, nor the Republican Congress. If Vance was president, the administration would get far more pushback. Under a normal administration, a president having repeated DIAs wouldn't be removed from office, but even a moderate ischemic is likely to impact mental faculties and merit the 25th Amendment being invoked. Vance and Miller both know that their federal power consolidation requires continued implementation leading up to the midterms, and Trump's own ego will mean he never lets go willingly. So unless the White House can provide a transparent explanation of his health that better fits these circumstances, I'm forced to conclude that they are lying to the American people and hiding that Trump had a stroke. It's time for the press to push on this and get clarity. So yeah, there you have it. That was that thread. Some interesting insights, which now you can know and take that with you for the future, the rest of your life. Because this became like this online cultural moment of people celebrating and laughing and joking preemptively about Donald Trump's speculated death, naturally what followed is the perpetual hypocrisy cycle. Liberals and leftists made a bunch of jokes about Trump dying. Conservatives and MAGA people pearl clutched about that. But then in the past, when like Joe Biden got a cancer diagnosis, the opposite thing happens. Conservatives celebrate and joke about it, and liberals pearl clutch about incivility. And as usual, the only correct people in both situations are the leftists, who made it clear that they don't care about Joe Biden theoretically dying of cancer, and nobody really should, given what his administration undertook, specifically aiding and abetting genocide, Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people of Gaza. It hasn't stopped since Biden. Obviously, Trump has continued on his legacy. Currently, Israel's enacting its final solution, its ground invasion on Gaza City. Aerial footage from Gaza shows that it's just completely destroyed. The IPC just declared a famine, and people are dying of starvation every day. Palestinians seeking humanitarian aid are being gunned down. Dozens are being murdered every single day. Starving people locked in cages and open fire on. They're currently employing a tactic of strapping massive explosives to remote-controlled vehicles and then driving them into the city and blowing them up. And the footage of this is just insane. Gigantic explosions, and people saying, you know, there's no point in evacuating because wherever they're evacuating to is being bombed as well. And we're not seeing that much footage of this onslaught because Israel has killed so many journalists, more journalists than every conflict in modern history combined. Israel is burning people alive. They're testing new incendiary bombs on residential neighborhoods. This morning, I saw footage of the left half of a baby, just the left half, blackened with ash and debris, and very close by the body parts of the baby's family members or relatives scattered around in pieces. All of these things are happening under Trump right now, but all of these things, every single one of the things I just listed, were also happening under the Joe Biden administration. They laid the groundwork for this. They supplied nearly all of the weapons that facilitated this genocide. And as crass as this Gaza Riviera talk is from the Trump administration, that would not be possible without Biden. Trump wants to do a construction job, and Biden simply did the demolition. So if these genocidal war criminals were to die, when these genocidal war criminals die, I think you'll have to excuse those of us who aren't sitting around shedding tears about it. So anyways, that's it for the video. Hope you liked it. Let me know what you thought about this Trump update, because I never talk about that guy. But crazy stuff going on over there. He's alive. Okay, bye.